Getting a great low end sometimes feels like this elusive thing that all mixers are chasing and never quite nailing. So in this video, Roelof Klopp, who is the head mix coach here at HCMS, is going to show you a simple plug-in chain for bass that you can use as a template in your mixes going forward that's going to help you get a more solid, powerful, and controlled low end. And more importantly, to be able to do that consistently, mix after mix, without stressing out or overthinking it. Here we go.
In this video, I'm going to show you a magic plugin chain that you can use on mixing bass guitar in all of your sessions here in different genres and different tunings. And I'll show you every step along the way here and the order in which you should take these steps, and of course the thinking behind these steps as well. Now all of these steps are also easily laid out on our mixing cheat sheet, which you can download using the link below here, or you go to mixcheatsheet.com and you can see proven starting points for pretty much all the instruments, not only bass guitar, but all the instruments as well as the vocals that you encounter in pop, rock, metal mixes. It's free. Definitely grab the cheat sheet. And now let's jump into Pro Tools and we'll check out this plugin chain here. So what I've done, I've exported the instrumental mixes, or actually the full mixes of 2 songs here, but I left out the bass guitar and I printed these out on their own. So let's check out this plugin chain in action, and then we'll just get to all the steps here. Let's check it out. Alright, so let's just get rid of everything and dial it in from scratch. Alright, so the first step is multi-band compression. I'm going to use low control for that, but I want to make sure that you guys understand that this is not really about specific plugins, right? It is more about the actual step and the principle and what it's doing here. So low control, first up, compressing the low end. I'll just play the bass in solo so that we can hear what we're doing. I'll gain up the amount of low end as well as give this bass a little extra volume. Yeah, all right, that's better. So I specifically want to compress the lowest octave, the sub low end, but also a little bit of the lower mid range, because I feel like for bass especially, that is such a crucial kind of frequency range, and I want to make sure that the volume of that frequency range just stays consistent and doesn't really jump out depending on whether he's playing high up the neck or just the very low notes here. So that's why I'm going fairly high with the frequency where I'm compressing. So it compresses everything below this frequency. And the benefit of doing this is that it kind of just gives you a fader for the amount of low end that you want to end up in the full mix with. So it's really just making sure that the low end stays very consistent and it doesn't really, take steps forward or back depending on what note the bass guitarist is playing here. So that's the first step, multi-band compression. All right, then the second step is saturation. You can choose to do that inside low control, which is totally fine, or you can just use any other saturation plugin that you have. In this case, I like to use Escalator on bass guitar because it kind of has a low mid-range forward kind of sound to it. So let's see what that is doing here. It's just actually beefing up the whole mid-range actually. I just like how that sounds like it's more bass guitar. It's more of the same bass guitar, which is basically the whole idea of saturation in the first place anyways. So the volume increases just a little bit, but it's mostly just that you're getting a bit of a beefier kind of mid-range, which is what I'm using this for. So Escalator is the second step, but again, you can also just use any sort of maybe R bass or what is the other one? Max bass, I think. Waves has a couple of these, or just the enhance function here in low control as well. But saturation with the goal of beefing up the mid-range is the second step, followed by the third step, which is just good old EQ. EQ. The EQ that I'm going to do here, of course, you have to do this in context of the full mix, otherwise you don't really know, where you're going with this EQ. But the basic starting point here is between 1 and 2.5K usually. That's where I really do a massive boost here to make sure that the bass guitar cuts through, like the full mix, like the heavy drums and the rhythm guitars, etc. So let's just play the full mix with this with the bass guitar as well. And notice how the low end is kind of in an okay spot already. Like there's massive low end, but the string noise and all the extra sound, in the mid range, especially from the bass guitar, is not really cutting through yet. So I'm just gonna do a very wide. I like to go with a wide bell EQ boost here. Let's start with 1K pretty much. Like I said, the sweet spot for this EQ is usually between 1 and 2.5K, because if you go higher than that and you're gonna EQ like 3K, then you'll notice that the bass guitar really kind of starts competing with the rhythm guitars and it starts masking them a little bit too much. And so I like to go a little bit lower than 3K usually. This case, just below 2K seems to be a good frequency here. I'm not afraid to do like a big boost because I really want to make sure that the bass guitar cuts through easily, and then we can of course adjust the fader so that it's not like all bass all of a sudden, right? I think that's a good starting point. I also want to add a little bit of low end, just sub low end, so I just have a bell or maybe just a shelf at 60 or something. And I'm pushing this EQ move pretty far. Actually, I have to put on headphones because my NS10s are not giving me the full picture yet. And I'm not afraid to push this bell boost or shelf boost actually pretty far as well, because I know that the next step is gonna solve the like excessive low end that we're getting right now. So I'm perfectly cool with this amount of low end. And that is because the next step is just regular compression. And in this case, I like to use a CLA 76 with a medium attack to let some of the like attack of the pick hitting the strings come through. And then, yeah, it's usually like between medium and fast release. If you go too fast, it might get a little pumpy, which I'll just show you here. You can hear that the bass guitar kind of starts sounding pumpy, like between all these notes it kind of, comes back up in volume and then it gets squashed down again, etc. And so in that case you want to slow down on the release just a little bit. This case around, 5-ish seems to be the sweet spot where it's still like consistent in both the low end as well as the mid range. Seems to be just in a nice consistent sounding way, but it's not super pumpy and it's not super aggressively moving back and forth in the mix here, especially when you put this in the full mix. And so you notice as I bypass the compressor that the bass guitar will take little steps forward or maybe take a step back depending on what notes he's playing. And I want the positioning of the bass guitar to be just solid, like in one spot. And so that's really what this compressor is helping me to accomplish here. So listen for that while I'll play the section again and I'll bypass the compressor halfway here. So. Especially on that slide, when he goes to that higher note, you can really hear the bass take a big step forward when we just bypass the compressor. And so that is the goal with the compression. And then last in the chain, which is the final step. This is an optional step, I would say. I don't always have to do this, but sometimes you just get a little like pokey frequencies in the bass guitar because you can see that we're doing a pretty significant EQ boost here. And sometimes that just results in some like whistling kind of frequencies. Like in this case, around 3K maybe. This is one kind of harsh frequency there. And I cleaned it up quite nicely, and we can actually boost this frequency a bit further. So with this EQ, you kind of get the best of both worlds, I guess. You still have that mid-range that is really cutting through the guitars, and it's easy to kind of listen to the bass on its own, even while the full mix is playing, but you don't get any of that harsh kind of like whistling sound that is kind of ear-piercing almost. Alright, so there you have it. That is the magic plugin chain that you can use in all of your different mixes. And like I said earlier, I also want to show you this in a completely different scenario where circumstances could not be any more different, because this is a very heavy deathcore track with a MIDI bass actually, so it's not even a live bass, and it's super low tuned stuff as well, but we're just copying the exact same plugin chain. We might have to redial in some settings, but at least the entire plugin chain and the thinking behind it and the order and everything will be the exact same. So let's first hear this mix without bass guitar. And then the bass and solo. Let's just bypass all the plugins and just go at them one by one again. So first up, low control again. Don't even have to adjust that, it's just doing exactly what I want, which is compressing the low end here. We probably have to do less saturation. Yeah, so it's definitely a little too much, because now you get kind of that farty sounding low end. It's just a little bit too distorted, so that is actually more than enough. Next up is the same EQ settings. When I listen to this bass and solo, I feel like, that is way too much mid-range, right? But if we put it in context of the mix, we're probably in a good spot right away here. Yeah, the mid-range is fine like it is, but we might not have to do this much boosting of the low end, because this MIDI bass by itself already had more low end than this recorded one in the rock song here. Maybe I want to do a bell, actually add 100 or something. I think that sounds absolutely wonderful like that. Then, of course, compression again, same goal here. We're just trying to even out both that big mid-range boost as well as that low-end boost that we just did here. But again, we might not have to be as aggressive, because as you can see, this waveform is already a lot more like solid, you know. And so, yeah, like naturally this bass is not as dynamic as the live one here, so we don't have to compress as hard. So, but still, we're getting a nice and smooth bass sound like this. And then again, optional, we might have to clean something up, which in this case might not even be necessary. I actually just want to push that mid-range boost EQ even further when we're listening to the full mix here. As well as just go a little bit higher on the frequency. So instead of just below 2K now, I'm actually boosting closer to 2.5K. So. And then we might as well check if we have to do any cuts here. Very small, kind of ringy sound there, which is totally fine to get rid of, at least a little bit. There you have it, completely different genre, exact same chain, exact same quality results. Alright, let's recap the entire Magic plugin chain. The first step is multi-band compression to compress the low end on its own. The second step is saturation to kind of beef up the mid-range and give you a more full-sounding bass guitar. The third step is EQ to emphasize both the mid-range and help it cut through the rhythm guitars, as well as just emphasize your low end. The fourth step is just regular compression with a medium attack and a medium to fast release. You want to let some of the pick attack come through, and you also don't want to make your bass guitar super pumpy sounding, hence the medium release. And then final is optional step is just a little cleanup EQ, specifically in the presence range, where just sometimes these pokey frequencies come up after doing big EQ boosts earlier in the chain. Hope this helps you, and if you want to see me dialing in bass guitar in like a real mix from start to finish, check out this video next, and I'll see you in the next one.